It's Kringle Time. Sit back and relax as we dive into a world of laughter and learning with the Kringle brothers, reminding us that we are better together.
For Michael and Charlie. Well, it's not as much fun without him being here. Someone who's even more fun than Michael is. Tonight we're going to talk about something I'm certain isn't really covered at many Santa schools. That's human resources for Santa Claus, Mrs. Claus, the elves, and any other Christmas performer. Now, and joining us is someone quite qualified to talk about this. It's Stacy Dodson Buer, a longtime HR executive who happens to portray Mrs. Claus and Sparkles the Elf. Oh my goodness, this is going to be so much fun. By day, Stacy Dodson is a global human resource executive with nearly 30 years of experience working with people, leaders, teams, communication, workplace culture, conflict resolution, and just about everything that you can think of HR. Christmas, that corporate hat comes off. And she portrays Mrs. Claus since 2019. She's attended many types of Christmas celebrations. And when she's not Mrs. Claus, she is Sparkles the Elf who loves her glitter and sequins. Family and friends, let's hear it for Miss Stacy Dodson Buer.
Hi. Well, hello, everyone. And thank you, Herbie. That's so weird to call you that. I'm so
It
happy to
is.
be here tonight and to join everybody. What a treat this is. And as far as being more fun than Michael, I don't know. Those are big shoes to fill. I'll try to entertain you as well as he can, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. That's awesome.
So I'm super excited to be here tonight, and thanks a lot for having me. I think that some of what we're going to cover tonight is probably some things that people have heard before, but hopefully I can bring a little bit of a different perspective and maybe some HR spin on what HR at the North Pole might be like.
Well, that sounds amazing. So basically what you're saying is we're about to open an HR department here at the North Pole.
Well, yes, exactly. That's what's going to happen. And I brought some case files, so hopefully we'll have some fun with that.
Well, we actually have an HR problem at the North Pole?
Well, the HR at the North Pole has HR at the North Pole has been pretty busy lately, to be honest with
Well,
you. We're gearing up for the season.
we've been around for many years. I just hope they don't ask for an increase in their sugar budget. But let's see here. All right, let's look at our first scenario. Oh, and before we get in there, oh my goodness. Hello, Sal, and he says hello, Your Majesty. It's an honor to watch you tonight. Lisa Stockwell, hello, Stacy and Kringles, welcome. Bill Coates, glad you could be here. Mike Connor, I hope that knee recovery is going good. Oliver Lowry, yep. Hello to East Tennessee, one of Stacy's favorite places. And Jenny Kringle's with us. And Bruce Norrid and Barney Combs. And oh my goodness, we have the family here. And also let's reach out to Bubba Claus Purcell. It's his birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday, Baba!
So that's
Yay!
awesome. So happy birthday to the member of the Santa Squad. So as we dive into this, let's see here is. Please don't tell us to dress for the job we want. Well, no, John, she won't go that far, but she does have some really good insights. Now, you might have heard some of this before, but you know what? This is going to be a different spin on it from an HR perspective. So our first file is the big discussion of employee or independent contractor. So let's start with something a lot of professional Christmas performers deal with. Are they really employees or independent contractors? Stacy, what's your take from HR?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start because there's a misconception that if somebody calls you an independent contractor, that you're automatically an independent contractor, and you're not. Generally, the working relationship is what matters. So it's going to involve a few different things that you're going to want to take a look at. Who's controlling the work that's performed? Who determines the schedule? Who supplies the equipment? Can you perform this? Is the performer really operating an independent business, or are they working for somebody who has a business? How provides the tools. Santa requires him, of course, to wear the official North Pole outfit, and Santa tells him exactly how the toys must be assembled. So Bernard isn't allowed to make any toys for the Easter Bunny on the side either. Only he can only work for Santa. But Bernard's agreement says in very large letters, independent contractor. So, based on all the facts I've just given you, do you think he is an independent contractor? Herbie?
Well, no, I was just typing really quickly, is because they're saying that we froze
Oh,
on you, but it's actually you're freezing up on me,
oh,
and I'm sorry. We're just having some technical yes, that big words that I can't say.
difficulties,
Multiple say
technical
difficulties.
difficulties.
Plus, the North Pole dogs are on a rampage tonight, so you might actually hear an echo here or there. So the question was to me is, so what do I think of an independent contractor? Well, based upon the definition, is most cases here directly and told that you can't go ahead and do any other thing, you are an independent Santa or performer. It's when they actually try to group you into a simple thing and limit your appearances that you now become an employee.
Right, Santa. So here's what is really important to remember, right? So you have to think about who is assigning the work, who is, telling you what outfit to wear, who is, saying whether or not you can have different jobs on the side. That's going to be really important. So it comes down to control, you know, what to wear, how to talk to the, then you're not an independent contractor because they're telling you and exerting that control exactly what you need to do. So an independent contractor is where you, of course, like most Santas, typically you're running your own business. You're bringing your own suit. You're setting your own hours. You can work for who you want, where you want, when you want. So that's an independent contractor. Another big difference comes down to taxes and pay. So an employee, that means that the company is going to take out your taxes, right? They're going to pay for Social Security and Medicare and all those good things. But at the end of the year, an independent to file their own taxes, and there's nothing withheld, right? So that's going to be a big difference. Are you getting a W-2 or are you getting a 1099? That's another way you can tell if you're an independent contractor because you can get the 1099. And then finally, it comes to benefits and protections. So an employee could get paid time off. They might get health care benefits and dental benefits. But as an independent contractor, there's no paid time off, no health insurance, and no extra benefits. So those are some good ways to differentiate. If you think you've been misclassified, I'm not legal counsel, right? I'm just here to tell you from HR. Our job is to advise. So I would advise you to check with your financial accountant, or if you have a legal consultant that you work with, check with them and just make sure that you're really being classified according to the job that you're performing. And think about when it comes down to the control and the rules, and that's how you'll know.
So it does sound like Santa may have an HR problem at the North Pole.
Well, I think Santa might have to rethink about how he's classified Bernard. You're absolutely right.
Oh my goodness, this is not a good thing. So from a real world perspective,
Yeah.
what are you trying to say?
Well, I think that Christmas performers have to understand the relationship that they're entering. If they're truly operating independently, then of course it's going to be an independent contractor. But they have to know their rates. They have to use written agreements, and they have to track their income and expenses. I know that one of your sponsors is Kringle Tracker, a great tool to do that. And they have to understand their insurance needs and know exactly what they've agreed to provide. That's really going to make them be the most successful in either route as an independent contractor or as an employee.
So that's a great topic because a lot of times I think we get mislabeled because we don't fully understand everything that's going on. Now, our second item is get it in writing. And I think this is a really important aspect because I think what we're going to do is talk about what?
We're going to talk about contracts, kind of
And
what we were
though
just talking about, right?
and those are amazing, and I don't know how many of you actually use contracts. I hope everybody does because it really identifies a lot of things. But let's hear from an HR perspective.
Well, I think there's a ruckus in the Rainbow Barn here this
I am
evening.
going to check it out right now. Just follow, go with it.
I'll hold it down. All right. So, Christmas magic is wonderful, and Christmas magic isn't a contract term, right? So let's not. We're focused on the magic. We're not focused on the contracts. But we really, as performers, we really need to be. Contracts are so important because they give you so much information that's agreed upon with your client, right? Like, where is the event? What time does it begin? What time does it end? How many guests are you expecting? What are you expected to do? Are there going to be photographs? Are there stairs? Maybe you have to go up some stairs and you need to get your equipment or your set or whatever you're taking up there. Where are you to park? Are there going to be pets? Is there alcohol being served? All these things that we've talked about at a lot of our Christmas performer classes, and they're really important to get all those things documented in writing because you want to know when you go into the event that you're going in so that you are prepared to bring the most magical experience possible. Sometimes when you just do a handshake agreement and you don't have a contract, things can go a little haywire, right? And that can be uncomfortable, not only for you, but also for the host. So it's just best to have a contract. You can develop a simple template that you use that you can tweak for each separate event. That's a great idea. You don't have to, develop something, reinvent the wheel every time, as I like to say. I'm a big believer in taking something that works and, keep improving that and recycling that and just make the tweaks to each different event that you have coming up. You want to address like what happens if your event runs over. A lot of performers, because they are bringing the Christmas magic, sometimes that can be uncomfortable to handle. And you don't want to say, oh, well, I was scheduled, Santa's got other appointments, or, I can add on additional time, but here's my overtime rate. Those are things you want to become comfortable saying, and obviously the most important thing, other than bringing the magic, that's really, I shouldn't say more, because that's the most important thing. But if you're performing as an independent contractor and it's not a pro bono or volunteer event, when and how do you get paid, right? Because that's part of running your business. So, all of those things can be addressed by having a good contract.
Go ahead. No, please finish.
Oh, that's okay. That's all. I wasn't sure you're back, so that's okay. Yeah, there you
Oh
are.
no,
Hi.
no. Yeah, no. This is not Flat Herbie. This is the real one.
It's the real one. So
It's
so does that make
perfect
sense
there.
as far as contracts? Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's very important to have a contract because as we get into our case study, I think it's going to actually shed a lot more light on the very true importance of having a contract. So, from our North Pole HR, if you want to go into the 30-minute Santa visit that wouldn't die.
Oh, goodness. Well, St. Nick is booked for a 30-minute home visit. Okay. So imagine this 30 minutes becomes 45. And then grandma wants pictures. And then Aunt Linda arrives late. And then somebody announces that all 17 of the grandchildren want pictures and individual photos. They invite you to stay for dinner. So, how do you, now it's like your 30-minute visit's going on like 90 minutes. How do you gracefully exit, right? And then they're going to be like, oh, but Santa, we thought you'd stay and you'd be, hanging out with us and enjoy the evening. So who's wrong in that scenario?
Yeah, well, from my perspective, it's almost as both. And
Yeah.
the reason I say that is it's all about communication. By communicating
Yes.
with your parties, involved parties, you can actually understand what needs to be better. Plus, at the same time too, though, is if you are developing your contract, you set the limitations, you set the parameters of the visit itself, and it's really up to the client by signing to accept those parameters, because oftentimes you have so many different events going on that particular day that a longer duration at one particular visit can really knock yourself out of the next one, and then everything is behind, and then you
Mhm.
have a lot of unhappy people involved. But what do you think, Stacy?
Well, no, you're exactly right. Communication is key. It doesn't matter if you're working with, a client or if you're working with a fellow Christmas performer, it's all about communication, right? Setting those expectations in advance so everybody knows clearly what to expect, what the visit will look like, when it's to begin, when it's to end, all of those things. That makes for a smooth visit. And I think that's so, so important. And I think that what I touched on earlier, performers really have to be comfortable saying, I'd love to stay if my schedule permits, but my additional appearance rate is, right? And so sometimes that's a little uncomfortable, especially if you're in the middle of a visit you know, time is money for Santa. There's a lot of toys to make. So you shouldn't be afraid to say that, especially during the season, valuable commodity, right? Everyone wants Santa. Everyone wants Mrs. Claus. Everyone wants the elves. They all want to have that magical experience. So make sure that you're comfortable saying that. That's not un-Christmas like, right? That's running a professional business. And I think that's such an important point to remember. So the real takeaway here is that kindness, which I'm all about kindness, and boundaries, which I'm not so good at, can coexist, right? So kindness and boundaries can coexist. I'm probably speaking this lesson to myself as well, right? Because boundaries can be hard. You can be warm, you can be generous, and you can be magical while still respecting your time and commitments.
And these are all very important matters to actually take into account as the season comes really closer, or about to actually be on the horizon. Can you believe it's almost September?
Crazy. It's crazy.
And the big Santa school for the end of the year, Charles W. Howard's on its way. But contracts, I think, need to actually be employed if you're not already doing them. And it needs to be outlined to cover many different things. You may never use them. I mean, what I mean is you'll never use some of the bullet points in your contract, but it's for your own safety and protection.
Yeah.
So if you aren't using contracts, I suggest you do, even if it's for nonprofit type situations where you're not receiving any monetary compensation for your visit, because it still sets the parameters for the visit. You can
Mm-hmm.
dictate, I will be there from this time to this time. We're doing pictures, we're doing this. And if you are fortunate to have extra time after and you want to be voluntarily add more time to it, you can do so. And if you are expecting compensation, then that should be outlined in your contract as well.
Yeah.
Well, our third scenario is really interesting, and it's kind of been touched on by many types of Santas. But what
Yeah.
makes this one interesting for me is to see the take from an HR perspective, and that's boundaries between children and consent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest things that we need to remember is that when we were talking about boundaries, setting boundaries for ourselves, we have to think about boundaries with consent too when it comes to having those magical visits with the children. A lot of times, I think, Herbie, you and I were talking earlier, sometimes you get those parents who say, oh, I don't care, just hold my kid. I don't care if they're crying and screaming and kicking. It's a rite of passage photo. And we're going to look back at this years later and we'll laugh. And for many families, they do, and that's true. But I think something that's becoming more and more prevalent is really talking about, making sure that the children feel safe, that they feel comfortable, that they have a good experience with Santa, and that you're creating great memories. You don't want to traumatize a child, right? Like we don't want them to be terrified of seeing Santa. And there's that age where they're kind of oblivious, they don't know, and then all of a sudden they get a little bigger, and now they're like, oh, there's all this big facial hair and this bright red suit. And so like they get a little afraid. And then, hopefully they come around again to where they're not, screaming and crying. But I think it's so important that, if the child doesn't want to sit in your lap, I would say don't force it. Maybe mom can hold the child, or maybe, the child could sit in the chair and Santa could peek around from the back, or, you need to get a little creative. And I know that people have talked about that at length, and there's different things like you don't have to sit on my lap. You could sit next to me. Would that be okay? Or would you like to high five Santa? There's different creative ways that you can still get a really great picture without having to force them to sit on your lap. And I just think that's so important that you think about, the child having the consent and like meeting them where they're at and making sure that they're comfortable. Sometimes I think the best Santa experience really truly is where Santa realizes that the child just needs a little space to feel safe and comfortable. I think that's important.
Okay, just a couple comments, Stacy. Jenny Kringle just loves the HR department background.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And let's see here. I just want to try to get a few more of these comments in here. Again, we apologize for any of the technical issues itself here. We're sorry about that. We're trying to rectify it as we go along. Santa Bruce Nord says, what do you do when your contract ends at 3, but client wants you to stay another half an hour, and how do you collect that extra?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that gets back to what we were talking about of saying, well, yeah, Santa's schedule would permit me to stay an extra half hour, but my what did I call it? Not overtime rate, but my rate for additional time would be, X. I think you just have to speak up and you have to say it. And then, if they say, yeah, sure, that's fine. At the end, hopefully, then you can go ahead and settle up with them. Or maybe if you're not collecting on site because maybe they've already paid you, I guess it depends on how comfortable you are with your client. You could always try to reach out to them after if they're in the middle of a party. Sometimes I can't stop and Venmo you right then. I don't know. It's always better to get paid up front. But I guess if you've got a long-time client who you trust and you have a good relationship with, hopefully they would settle up with you. And if they forget to settle up with you, I think it's okay to send an invoice right after the fact. Say, I really enjoyed your event. I was happy to be able to, stay over the extra half hour. Please remit payment for, the invoice, in this amount, and happy holidays kind of thing. So I think that's okay. Your time is a commodity and you deserve to be compensated for it. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And again, too, is I think if it's actually written in the contract that shows that anything above the agreed upon time is going to be this much,
Yeah.
carry a copy of the contract with you. I mean, Santa doesn't. I mean, from a Santa perspective or from a Christmas performer perspective, this isn't about the money grab. I mean, our job is to actually provide the best experiences that we possibly can. But as Stacy pointed out, from the HR perspective, is your time and your energy is a commodity.
Absolutely.
And it's one of these things where it's a point of valuing yourself. I mean, if this was the case, then there's AI generated visits and personal things that you could do. However, at this time itself, you have to understand that you matter. And I think this is where we're forgetting, because we're trying to become so focused on the clients and we forget about ourselves.
Yeah.
Kelly Mitchell says cash is always good for going over. Yes, definitely itself too. But before we actually get into this case, Santa John says contracts should cover overtime and how it is covered or recouped.
Yes.
So, but before we get into the case file about children and their boundaries, let's go ahead and do a couple of our contributors right now. All right, so stay tuned. We'll be back with the reluctant 3-year-old.
Since 1948, one suit defined Santa. Designed by Charles W. Howard and worn by the world-famous Santa Claus School. Worn for presidents, movies, parades, and the most magical moments in families' lives. This is not a costume, but finely tailored, hand-sewn clothing made in the USA. With expert cleaning, restoration, and storage services available, Santa & Company, LLC makes Santa magical.
Are you going crazy managing clients, contracts, and invoices? Kringle Tracker is here to help you. Stay organized with ease. Keep your sanity in check with Kringle Tracker's intuitive tools to effectively manage your schedule and clients. Our seamless, customizable contract system allows you to tailor your contracts to you and your client's needs. Prepare for tax time like a pro by tracking your income and expenses and generate reports to make it a breeze. Transform your clause business by signing up for a free 20-day trial. Kringle Tracker was created by a clause for the clause community so you can focus on making magical memories for your clients. Head over to kringletracker.com and sign up for your free trial today.
All right, and we're back. So, just for those who maybe just joined us, is tonight's episode is about the North Pole HR department, and with me is Stacy Dotson Buer, a highly respected individual within the HR community with over 30 years of executive level HR. So, as we were talking before the break here, is about boundaries and children, and of course the consent. So as we go in, we want to actually now talk about this case study, and this case study is called The Reluctant 3 Year Old. Stacy, go ahead.
Yeah, so we were just talking about the child who's terrified of Santa, right? So in this case, let's say we have Emma, and mom wants the perfect Christmas picture, but Emma's crying and clinging to mom. And mom's like, oh, Santa, it's okay. Like, just go ahead and take her. Like, I want the picture. She'll be fine. Like, what should Santa do in that situation based on what we just talked about? Were you paying attention, Herbie?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I'm trying to keep track of everybody and everything that's going on, plus
You
also
know.
listen for the North Pole pooches because they're outside.
Oh,
Um, but from this perspective, too, is, and we've talked about this in the past with the improvisational skills and things, that children, we have to be very conscious of the fact that some children just don't want anything to do with Santa. And we usually, when they get into a point of crying or wailing or flopping on the floor, it's because of stress of the parents forcing them to go and see Santa. So,
yes.
what should we do in this part? Well, honestly, what we should be doing is letting the child dictate the pace of the visit itself.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, go ahead, Stacy.
You got to make sure that you're preserving their sense of safety. I think that's so important, right? Their psychological safety, if it means sitting further away or taking one of those other photos that I mentioned, kind of instead of having the kid on your lap, maybe they sit in the chair and you're next to it, peeking out from behind, or maybe mom is sitting next to you holding the child. You've all had those kind of things. Or if they're, old enough, maybe they high five you or fist bump or just something kind of fun. So I think that's the most important thing. Meet the child where they're at. um, it's okay, if Emma doesn't even want to get within 10 feet of Santa. Just, I don't think it's your responsibility to manufacture the photograph, right? It's your responsibility as Christmas performers, whether Santa, Mrs. Claus, or an elf, to protect the experience, right? That's the most important thing, because what is that child going to take with them? They're going to take with them that experience. And I will guarantee you, from my own experience and probably from your own experience too, that when you look back and you think back about your visits with Santa, maybe you don't even have the photos anymore, but I bet you remember those experiences, because those you carry with you in here for a lifetime. So it's
Uh,
really important.
I thought you were going to ask about the crying picture because I have one sitting right behind me.
I've seen yours, I know.
Yes, it's crazy. But oftentimes from a learning environment for a Christmas performer, we always focus on the children. And a lot of times that's not the case. We also have to focus not only on our clients as an adult boundary, but we also have to look at boundaries for ourselves as well.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Stacy, why don't you go ahead and take that?
Yeah, I think that's so true. So thanks for bringing that up, because that's a good point. We talk about, and I've heard this a lot about people, Christmas performers and Santas who are at corporate parties, right? And maybe they're serving alcohol, and maybe, everyone likes to be all grabby with Santa, or sometimes Mrs. Claus, or sometimes the elf. And so we know, like, a lot of that happens, and that can be very uncomfortable. Sometimes they make inappropriate comments, or they just are too intoxicated and it's just uncomfortable. I think it's okay, for Santa to try to redirect or get the host, right? And it's their event. Let the host deal with that. That's not why, you're there, right? Um, I will say this, and this is true. I have been at a couple of events as a not as a Christmas performer, but as a guest, and I've had some Santas, and I think maybe they obviously clearly were not probably properly trained, if I'm being honest. And maybe they actually, well, not maybe, they did. They made some inappropriate comments to the guests, me being one of them, and that was uncomfortable, right? So I don't ever. So of course now I have that memory. We were talking about how you lock all of that in, right? So I don't want that memory of Santa. I want it to be like a magical, holly jolly, merry memory. So whether you're being aware of the boundaries of how guests are interacting with you, And then also being mindful and not becoming overly comfortable or overly familiar. Even if it's somebody you've known for a long time and you think you can joke around, well, you never really know you can joke around. It just takes one interaction for something to be taken the wrong way, and then it can really become a problem. So just always be mindful. If you have a problem with a guest, contact the host, ask them to handle it, and then also just make sure you're being mindful of appropriate boundaries, even if you're performing for some friends or a client that you've known a really long time. It's really important.
And you're really making a really good point too, is because the Santa suit doesn't give you, nor does it give anyone else permission to exceed your boundaries. You can't be afraid to say no,
That's
or you
right.
can't be afraid to report. And again, this goes right back to the contracts. Comments such as maybe sexual innuendos, implied violence, touching, and again, family, you know what I'm talking about. How many of you have done like corporate parties or adult parties where a lot of alcohol is being served, and the CEO of the company has based their wife has come up and basically got some suggested pictures that you were being totally platonic, but she actually made them even worse. So again, don't be afraid to say no. But you know what? We have a special guest star with us right now. Let's bring him on the screen. And here he is. It's Michael and Charlie traveling. Luckily, Charlie is
Hey,
driving.
I have a question. HR
What's your
question.
What's your
Uh-oh.
question?
Well, what do you do when your driving elf puts you on the naughty list and you don't think it's the right kind of call?
Well, what did you
Oh.
do?
Well, he didn't like my dad jokes.
Well, there's some of them I don't like.
And they were. I just wanted to stop and say hi. We're on 65. And guess what? Sal, we're almost to Bucky's and I can't wait.
That's the Kringle brothers' favorite stop, Bucky's.
That is Bucky's.
That is. And we're going to. I'll send a picture to you guys. And thank you, Stacy, for helping out tonight. I
You're welcome.
appreciate it. And I won't take too much of your time because I know you're giving a lot of valuable information and I want to make sure you're out. But I also wanted to let everybody know we appreciate you and love you all. And yeah, you guys are great.
Well, just remember, Michael. Jenny Kringle says nobody likes your dad jokes. So, Charlie, you're in good company.
Oh, not even my beef jokes, burger joints.
Well, you know what? When's the last time you guys ate? You're getting a little punch happy over there.
Well, we haven't eaten yet. We haven't had dinner yet. We're still on the road. So,
All
all right.
right.
Travel
Thanks,
safe.
Stacy.
Travel safe. Hurry
Thanks,
back.
everyone. We love you.
Love
Thank
you
We
you.
miss
both
you.
too. Well,
Oh.
that was a nice surprise. But again, not taking away from that wonderful surprise here is family, just remember this, that we have boundaries from being a Christmas performer when it comes to children. But we have to also ensure that we're protected. That we can't be afraid to say no. I could tell you a story about Stacy being Mrs. Claus, who has actually had not too appropriate comments being made towards her. Unfortunately, I was not there at that event. She was with another Santa, but she didn't really approach any individuals to report the obnoxious behavior. So again, because of this, people will constantly keep it up. So again, be safe, be well, but protect yourself.
Yeah. And you know what? In hindsight, I wish I would have felt comfortable speaking up and saying something to the host. You know, you don't want to make a bad impression. You don't want to make a
Uh,
loss. But I shouldn't, in hindsight, I shouldn't have looked at it like that. I should have told them because you know what? Then maybe they could have done something with that individual, right? And to prevent that from happening to someone else. So we all learn as we go. And, we just do the best we can in the moment. So,
And
none of us.
again, if you report a bad experience or a potential customer, client, or guest at these things, and explain to the host that if it actually continues, we're gone,
Yeah.
and that's just it. So this is the most important thing that we have to understand here is we're people. And remember the golden rule. Treat others as you would want to be treated.
Absolutely.
And that goes towards adults, that goes to children, and that goes to any other person. Even your co what's the word? Co-stars, your
Performers
elves,
too. Yeah.
Mrs. Claus, your performers. Remember, treat them with the respect, treat them with the dignity that they deserve as well. They're not just props; they're your people.
Hmm.
So,
Absolutely.
all right, I'm just going to read a couple of these other things here. Santa Doug says this is really good, and Julie Gonsoski. Michael, it's a good thing you're not driving and broadcasting at the same time. Otherwise, you might be getting a little visit from HR. Yeah, no kidding.
That's right. We have a distracted driver's policy. Just like for driving, it's also a distracted sleigh policy. You can't be flying on Christmas Eve while you're distracted. Santa, are you checking the list while you're flying the sleigh?
Well, he could be. That's why we carry elves with us. But another thing I also like to say too is in regards to boundaries. Michael and I have been asked many a times too. Is one of the things that I can actually say is also mind your own ethic or moral standards. And the reason I say that is, as these cannabis recreation cannabis facilities, distribution centers, keep coming and coming and coming and going and becoming more popular. I've been approached a few times to actually go and be a Santa for an event there. Now, I'm not saying it's right, it's wrong, or your personal beliefs. However, if it's something that goes against your moral code or your ethical code, then don't feel that you have to do it. Remember, be truthful to yourself, and that truth will come out in your visits. We are dealing with experiences here, guys, and we're not dealing with bad things going this way. Okay, Sue Radloff says reporting inappropriate action may prevent someone else in the future having to experience the same
Yes.
thing that happened to
That's right.
you. Perfect. And Santa Doug, I feel like I'm in the principal's office on the naughty list. Well, don't
No,
feel
you're
like
not.
that, Doug.
You're not on the naughty list. Well, unless you've been doing the naughty things, which I don't think you have been. I think Jenny Kringle would not allow that. So I'm
And
pretty sure
Kelly
that's
and
not
Kelly
you.
Mitchell says, I think when you accept a job where adult beverages are being served, you have to be ready for anything. You have
Yes,
to you have an image to protect, and some folks have no boundaries.
that's right.
So again, the point of this section, and I'm glad Stacy brought this up here, is we have to understand that our boundaries are within our control. But if we let our boundaries shift, and not really be convincing, then people are going to feel they can do anything you want, and then you just become a piece of property rather than a person that you are.
Yeah,
So
that's not
the next item is, and we can go through this one here before we go into doing some other things, is accommodations and inclusions. This will be a fun one.
yeah, that's my favorite because HR and Christmas performers are have one big important principle that they share, right? And that's people. And so, and people have all kinds of, I call them abilities. I don't call them disabilities, right? We all have different levels of ability. So it's so important in HR and in Christmas performing that you meet people where they are, right? So a child could have sensory issues, or maybe they, have physical limitations, or maybe they need additional time or additional space. It's okay, right? Like, don't assume what you think they might need. Ask, right? Ask the family, ask the parents. So I do this one event every year that I'm super passionate about. It's at the Festival of Trees for Children's Hospital. And I always volunteer during the hour where patients from the Children's Hospital, it can be any patient they have throughout the year who is well enough, right? They come with their family. And so some of these kids come in, and some of them are hooked to breathing machines, feeding machines. They're in wheelchairs. And at first, it can be a little scary because you're not really sure, like, I don't want to hurt them. What do I do? How do I help them? It's okay. And so the Santa I work with there, he's a great Santa. And he will say, like, he'll speak up and he'll say, okay, mom, like, can we do this or can we do that? Or how can I help? Or tell me what to do. He'll ask. And I've learned that from him. Like, it's okay to ask. And then they feel so special because they're having a great experience too. And it's not like you're kind of shying away because like are scared that you're going to hurt them, or you're timid, or you don't know what you're going to do, right? Most of us, I think we all have big hearts, and we want to go up and embrace those families who we know that's like a special um, level of struggle, that they carry. And you want to give them the extra joy and the extra love. So don't be afraid to ask, how you can include them and how you can make it a special experience for them. All right. So I'm going to go into case file number 4. And you guys can pop your comments like in the comment section if you have thoughts about these case files, just to make it more interactive and fun. But this one is going to be kind of fun. Rudolph versus North Pole Logistics. So this one's been sitting on HR's desk since 1939. Rudolph applied to join the reindeer team, as we all know. But management didn't select him initially because he had a nose that was different than the other reindeer. We all know this. So the other reindeer mock him, they exclude him. But then severe weather arrived. And management suddenly discovers that Rudolph's difference allows him to perform an essential function that nobody else can perform. So that raises several questions for HR, right? Why was Rudolph treated differently because of a physical characteristic? We don't do that. Why was he subjected to inappropriate workplace behavior? Like we can't be mocking and ridiculing people who are different, right? Did management overlook his ability because they noticed his difference? And most importantly, how much back pay does the North Pole owe him in apples, not carrots, because reindeers really prefer apples. So that's just kind of some fun ways to say, just when somebody's different, make sure that you don't automatically assume like what their limitations are or what they can and can't do. There's a place for everyone. We try to have a little fun with it here with Rudolph, but we just really want to make sure that they're all feeling included. So
I really think that you touched on a lot of really good subject matter here, is because we're not all knowing.
yeah,
And a lot of times when we actually do get approached, especially dealing with children who are on the spectrum, maybe non communicative, um, the assistance to actually help them create that experience, to create that love, to create that bond is really important. Oftentimes, I feel that when something is out of the norm, we immediately try yelling the simplistic instructions, thinking they're going to understand that better, when truthfully, that could be the worst thing that could happen. I mean, they could be autistic. They may not like the loud noises. And at the same time, too, is we have to learn to be a little bit more accepting. We have to learn to be basically more Santa like, more Mrs. Claus like, more Christmas performer like in this regards here. Now, before we move on, Stacy, is Julie here has a question that I think might be interesting to hear your perspective on.
okay.
How would you handle a fellow Santa that always brings up another Santa's disability and even yelled out Gimpy in the parking lot? Well, by the way, your eyes bulged out, and probably not a good thing for HR.
I can't help my HR eyes. They're HR eyes. They're not poker eyes. I can never play poker. Um, um, yeah. Oh, Santa, if you're on here, please don't do that. That's not nice. Something that we have to, I think about is that we don't want to be so focused on someone's difference or their disability that we don't see their ability, right? So yeah, I mean, I think somebody needs to kind of just gently and kindly, because maybe that Santa doesn't know any better, right? And I never want to make anyone feel awkward, because it's really about education and in teaching empathy and compassion and kindness, right? Like maybe he thinks like, it's a good old boys network. He doesn't care. It's funny. Ha ha ha. But maybe that does hurt that Santa's feelings. And maybe he doesn't say anything because it is like a brotherhood, and guys and sometimes those gals too, we kind of like just pal around with each other and get a little too familiar. And I think we have to put ourselves like in that person's shoes. How would we feel if that was happening to us? So I guess if I was with somebody who did that, it might be uncomfortable. Welcome to HR. Everything's uncomfortable when you're dealing with people. You just do it with kindness. But if a true friend will really tell you the truth, right? Isn't that what they say? So I think I would pull that person aside and say, I just had to ask you a question. Like, I noticed when you interact with this person, like that this is how you're interacting, and maybe you're really familiar with each other and that's your thing, but I don't know. Have you thought about how others might feel or what they might think when they hear that? And you might say, well, I don't care. But maybe you can try to, help gently kind of coach and guide. Because really, isn't that what we all do? We try to help coach and guide each other to be a little bit better today than we were yesterday. So that's what I would do.
Oh, the PA Santa Brian says a Santa would never act like that. Unfortunately, PA Santa, there
I would
are
hope
some
not.
people that do that. Let's see here. Yep. So that one's there. As far as me, Julie, is unfortunately, I agree. I mean, not unfortunately, I agree with everything that Stacy said. However, one of the other caveats I would like to make is because he's doing this in a public setting, um, it is actually a direct reflection upon himself. And if I was a client walking through that parking lot and I heard something like that, or even if I was a father and my family was there, or even if I was just by myself and I saw this taking place, would I really want to go back and hire? I want to be would hire this individual after seeing what he's like in public.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing is again, when we go back to boundaries, we have to
Mhm.
be respectful. And as you actually pointed out, remember, we have to treat others like we would be treated ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. Now, let's see here. Before we get into the next section here, I'm just looking. Bruce Nord makes a point, and this is kind of up your alley too from an HR perspective.
Mhm.
When is it time to hang up the red coat?
Mm, that's a good question. I have mixed feelings on that. It's controversial, right? I think it has to be a personal decision for everyone. I don't know that in the HR book that there's a right time. Some people I've heard them say, when I can't walk in and give the ho ho ho, that's it for me. I don't know. I know you want kids to see Santa as strong and able bodied and like the woodsman that he is, but maybe it's also nice, Santa can maybe relate to somebody who maybe what about kids who are in a wheelchair? I mean, couldn't Santa be on a scooter? Couldn't Santa have a cane? Maybe he needs it, but he could say he twisted his ankle in the paddock, tending to the reindeer. I don't know. I think it has to be a very personal decision. Um, so I don't really have an answer for that. What do you think, Herbie?
Well, I mean, I think you actually really touched on a good points in here in this in your response, where we all know our own limitations, and if you're doing your own character development and you basically are honing in on your type of Santa, once you actually get to a point where you can no longer be the type of Santa that you imagined or embraced, can you pivot and recreate it following the current situation that you're in?
Yeah.
Or do you think it's now time to start acting as a mentor and
Yeah.
maybe trying to find a younger individual, both male or female, because we all know Santa
Yeah.
Mel. I mean, so it doesn't really matter.
Succession plan-
This
Succession planning, another HR term.
exactly. So again, if you can mentor, now you may only be able to do maybe a few visits a year, and most of the bulk that you were doing, you could be turning over to your mentee. But it really, truthfully, just becomes a time for you to actually self review and feel as if you're still up for the challenge.
Yeah, I think really and another thought that came to mind is when you lose the joy, right? If you don't feel the same joy in performing and in meeting the families, but I think for some Santas, and I can only imagine. Kind of, this question sort of breaks my heart a little bit, to be honest, because but it happens, right? I mean, it does eventually happen where we all get to that point. But I think if you lose the joy, or maybe you still feel the joy, but you lose the physical ability where it's too tiring or too taxing. I guess then it would be time to switch to a mentor role. That makes sense to me. That's a good idea because definitely I guess that's one of the things I've heard you guys talk about a lot is that there's so much knowledge and wisdom among this group. And then, unfortunately, when we have those who take their last sleigh ride, a lot of that goes with them. And there's so much that could be shared with the younger generation to help carry on your own legacy. through them. So I think that's why I love this group, because you guys are all about, I should say guys, should say the group, everyone is about sharing knowledge and making each other better together. So that's what I love about MAPS.
And Kathy, I just see here that you just got to Atlanta this afternoon and 3 people called me trouble. Not sure why.
I wonder
I
why.
just laughed it off and told the concierge I didn't understand why. He said everyone seems to know you. We laughed about it. Well, Kathy, I know you, and I've been the recipient of a marshmallow pie, a cream pie, and a few other elements that we're not going to talk about.
Hey,
You are
hey, that was for
trouble.
charity.
It
That was
was
for a good cause.
it was for charity, but it was still gross. All right, Stacy, we're going to take one more break here. We're going to run the dad joke here really
Oh,
quickly.
here we
So
go.
here we go.
Why did the Christmas tree go to the barber? Because he wanted to get his fur trimmed.
I'm not quite sure where he gets these from. Or anybody gets these from. All right, we're going to take another little jaunt here because we have today's trivia because it is 8:50 here. And I want to actually go and make sure Stacy is able to say everything she planned on saying. And isn't this so much fun? If you like us, remember to always follow us or like us on Facebook or subscribe on YouTube at the Kringle Brothers so you're always notified as to what the new show is and what's currently going on. Plus, when we do travel, we always throw up additional videos because remember, we only have 5 more shows left in this current season. And if you like, you can always email us or contact us at kringlebrothers2@gmail.com. So if you like what we're doing so far, please go ahead and either email us or follow us at Facebook and YouTube. Let's go back into the comments here. Oh, let me first shut this off. It's hard to do this all by yourself sometimes here.
You're doing great.
Let's see here. All of us have been warned that trouble is coming. Oh, yeah. See, Kathy, you already know throughout everybody. And Kelly Mitchell says, great job, Stacy. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to run this clip from Santa's Closet.
Since its founding in 2004, Santa's Closet has been committed to providing unique, high-quality accessories for Santa, Mrs. Claus, and the entire Claus community. Our mission is to deliver exceptional customer service and outstanding value, offering competitive pricing and a wide selection of products designed to enrich the Claus experience.
All right, now for all those who have actually been joining us before, you may know the rules, but in case you don't, I'm going to go through with them one more time. We are going to go ahead and enter into our trivia portion. If you are today's winner, please go ahead and email us at kringlebrothers2@gmail.com. Again, that's kringlebrothers2@gmail.com with your name, your address, and your shirt size. Now, the rules are, we try to keep it a clean game, but what you do in your own homes, I don't know. But if you have one, and within the last 8 weeks, you are not eligible to win again. Therefore, please do not participate, and you know who you are. All right, tonight's trivia question is, I want to make sure I get the right one here because, oh my goodness, this is too crazy here. All right, tonight's trivia question is, how many days in Hanukkah? How many, and Stacy, you cannot answer. How many days in Hanukkah? I'm watching YouTube and I'm watching Facebook to see who gets the first answer here. That's right. How many days at Hanukkah? Come on. Oh, we have our first answer right now. We had Santa, yay Santa. And the answer is 8. That's correct. So, yay Santa, go ahead and actually email us your name, your address, and your shirt size. And we will go ahead and get that sent out to you as soon as possible. Well, thank you. Well, I love Sue's answer. No idea. Maybe 6. Come on. For all those who are familiar with the Adam Sandler movie, 8 Crazy Nights. But let's show the answer. And the answer is 8 days. All right, so let's go back up in here. Well, thank you so much for playing and participating. So we covered the North Rudolph versus the North Pole logistics. So now
Mhm.
the next area I wanted to dive into in the remaining time that we do have, Stacy, is social media and the digital North Pole.
Yeah, I think that's what you were talking about earlier when we were talking about, inappropriate behavior, and if the boss's wife at the Christmas party is getting a little frisky with Santa and taking pictures. Her and her friends are all around. Those kind of things, right? Those kind of things live forever, forever on the Facebook, on the gram, the IG, the Insta, the TikTok, any groups, any forums, any private messages. It's all retrievable. You think you've deleted it, but you haven't. It's all retrievable. Trust me, my IT team can retrieve anything. So just be mindful, not just of pictures that others might be posting of you, but of things you're posting. Sometimes you think you have a separate private and a separate personal account. My best advice to you is, if you don't want others to know, don't post it, because there's so many ways that people can research. Even if you think like, hey, they're not on my friends list, they're never going to see this, and only my friends that I've approved will see that. Somebody can share it with somebody, and it's
Oh, you froze,
going to be
Milo.
and it will
There we
happen.
go.
So that's the rule I live by. I'm an open book, pretty much. Oh, am I back? Am I back?
Yes, you're back.
I'm a pretty much an open book. My He doesn't really probably care that I put everything on Facebook, but I don't have anything to hide. So I'm not posting, wild, crazy things either. So just be mindful of what you're posting. It will follow you, even if it's on your personal page. It still reflects on you professionally. That's one thing. Even in my day job, we don't search everybody's social media, but there have been times where professionally we've heard that, hey, you need to check this out, and we've looked, and it's that person is still associated with our brand, right? They're still part of our corporate image. So, we need to be mindful of the things that don't align with that, and ask them to reconsider some of the things that, they might be posting that aren't in alignment with that. So that's kind of really what I wanted to say about that. If you're posting pictures of children, make sure you protect those children unless you have permission. Put a little heart or smiley face over their face. We've talked about all that kind of stuff before. Make sure that you're not posting any private family information of your clients, that you're not attacking other performers. Oh, I was up in blah, blah, blah the other day, and this Santa, he was awful. You guys should have seen him. Like, okay, if you're doing that, I'm going to think, what's this guy going to say about me? Like, that's not cool. So, and plus, if a potential client sees that, does that say Holly Jolly Merry Christmas? No, it does not. That says that's a grumbly Santa that I probably don't want to hire for my event. So that you're just hurting yourself by doing that. Keep those conversations private and off social media. That's not a place for them. Don't screenshot private conversations. Don't have political arguments. Heated climate these days, folks, right? We all have our differing opinions, and I'm all about diversity. I love a good debate. I love people to have like their opinions about things, but Santa community, we need to be really careful about what we're putting out there, because we want to be inclusive for everybody, right? We want to bring joy and happiness. So I think that's important. And just any photos that would undermine your professional image. If I had some girl one time, she posted a photo. It was at a Halloween party, and it wasn't a kind of, and she thought it was her personal Facebook page, and it would never get out. And it certainly did get back, and it certainly did undermine her professional image. So just be really thoughtful about that kind of thing. So that's what I
And
wanted to say about social media.
Well, and you make very good points. I mean, a lot of us have already been taught, to have a separate Santa account or a separate Christmas performer account and a separate personal account. So if you want to do your rants and raves and everything on anything from your own standpoint, you have your own personal page. But you are right, with technology and the merging of so many different groups and so many different social platforms, things can get crossed and things can get out that should never actually happen. But Stacy, we could talk to you all night long with all the different information that you do have, but unfortunately, we only have about a few more minutes left. So, after nearly 30 years in HR and your experiences of Mrs. Claus and Sparkles the Elf, what is your biggest connection between HR and Christmas performing?
People. It's all about the people and the experience you give them. It's not about policies and forms and handbooks. It's about, just like with Christmas performers, it's not about red suits or Mrs. Claus's dress or the elves' shoes, right? It's about people and how you interact with them, and did they feel heard, and did they feel respected, and did they feel seen and included and valued. It's about coming into their lives and leaving them with a little bit of Christmas magic, that magic that's going to be a memory for them forever. That's what it's really about. They're going to carry that with them for the rest of their lives. So just remember that professionalism does not diminish the magic. Professionalism protects the magic. So please make sure that you're working hard to protect that.
Now, what would Mrs. Claus tell the North Pole HR before we go?
Well, Mrs. Claus would say, document everything. Please stop replying all. Do not discuss the salaries in the toy shop unless you're prepared for consequences. Never schedule the company holiday party immediately after open enrollment. And if Santa tells you, we've always done it this way, then that's your cue to start asking a lot of questions.
And finally, your persona as Sparkles the elf.
Oh, Sparkles. Well, Sparkles has been instructed by legal that Sparkles cannot comment. There's an ongoing glitter investigation. So
So
no
you're
comment.
the one in charge of the glitter bomb.
No comment. I plead the fifth.
Oh my goodness. But I guess what we really can sum up tonight's session is whether you're a Santa, Mrs. Claus, an elf, a photographer, a handler, or someone just beginning your Christmas journey, take care of your fellow performers. Take care of your Christmas family. Share what you know. Welcome new people. Respect boundaries. Keep learning. Be dependable. And remember that there's plenty of room at the North Pole for all of us. Because the very best Christmas magic isn't something one performer creates alone. We create it for each other. Because why? We're better together. Now, let's see here. Just a couple little things that we could go ahead. First of all, I would like to give a thanks out to our TNL family. Bob, Scott, Spangle, Angela, Phineas, Randall, the couple Claus, and all the other wonderful performers who actually bring the TNL network to you. I'd also like to thank Larry Talbert for the insurance, Santa Roger Mitten from Kringle Tracker, and of course Wade and Sculler from Santa's Closet. And most importantly, I would like to thank our lovely wives, Linda and Stacy, for joining us tonight and giving us the opportunity to go ahead and keep this going. And again, a major big thank you to each and every one of you, because without you, we would not have anybody to talk to. And that's no fun. Now, I just want to make one more comment too. You've all heard me talk about Steve Gillum and the wonderful ways to get stories from him. Steve has opened up Santaology 1 once again, and you can go to santaandthedriver.com to get all the informations and to basically go ahead and register. And in closing, until we meet again, may your days be jolly and your hearts shine bright. May the magic of Christmas fill every aspect of your life. Remember to be good, well, as good as you can be. And remember to spread joy and share kindness to all you see. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
Thanks for having me. It's been an absolute joy. Love
No,
the
it's been a
family.
pleasure, Stacy. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're back for the after party. Oh my
Yay.
goodness.
I love a party.
And it's funny as they are getting used to this because we've only lost 3 people. So we're still at 51 live viewers. But thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going through the questions here really quickly. The Vineyard Santa says, may you all live your life with the excitement of your inner child unwrapping presents on Christmas morning. And let's see here. Jerry Nebel, thank you, Stacy. Lots of great stuff here tonight. Professionalism protects the profession. Like it.
That's
Jenny
right.
Kringle just gave you 5 smiley faces, so I guess she really liked everything.
Thank you.
And let's see. That was from the Vineyard Santa going in there too. So again, thank you all. As a reminder, we only have 5 more shows left because our final show is at the end of September, right before Charles Howard starts. So again, you can always reach us. Oh, still got more comments coming. Great show. Oh, that's from Michael. Thank you.
Thanks,
Just
Michael.
thank you. Just remember, always follow and like us at Facebook or YouTube at Kringle Brothers. And if you want to get in touch with us for any reason as to why, you can always reach us at kringlebrothers2@gmail.com. Thank you so much for spending a few moments with us. Thank you, Stacy, for the great information. And as I said, we could talk to you for hours. Good night, everyone.
Night.